Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. So these guys are a brewery that I had actually heard of before I saw the can, and they're from a state that hasn't been covered all that much on the channel thus far, and that is something that I hope to change over the next little while. But the beer itself is a bit of a beast. It's from a style family that I've had many examples of before, but it's a sub-style that I haven't had all that many of, and that was one of the main reasons that this one caught my eye. So it was quite random to come across this brewery's beer here in Hong Kong, and it was just a case of, bugger it, why not? Let's have a look at this. And it's always cool to introduce new American breweries from different parts of the States here on the channel. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Needless to say, very curious to see how it turns out. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to the New England area in the northeastern part of the US. We're going to go to the state of Vermont, home to the wonderful Bernie Sanders, of course. I do like him. And we are going to go to Burlington, which is in the kind of western part of the state, not too far away from the Canadian border actually. It's actually right south of Montreal. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to have a little look at my first beer from Burlington Beer Company. This one is called Primal Destruction. It comes in at 11.5% ABV, and they're describing this one as a quadruple dry hopped quadruple IPA. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. I've not had too many quadruple IPAs on the channel before, but yeah, maybe one or two, I think from Sally Cat and a few other breweries in Scandinavia actually. But yeah, this is one of two Burlington beers that I found here in Hong Kong. I didn't buy the other one, of course. This was the one that kind of caught my eye. But the other one was Primal Carnage, if I'm not mistaken. And I found these at Gerbier in the One Mall in Chimchachi, who always get a really random selection of American stuff. So yeah, I'll put the link to their Instagram in the video description for you below, and I do recommend you go and check them out if you find yourself here in Hong Kong. But yeah, 11.5% quadruple dry hopped quadruple IPA from Burlington Beer Company in Vermont in America. Let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Burlington Beer Company. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned earlier. But there's all the usual social media in the video description below. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. Make sure you check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist along with a number of other things. That's been added to quite regularly at the moment because there's a lot of interesting American beers making their way here to Hong Kong. And do check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel at the moment. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Burlington Beer Company for the first time. I love this, introducing new breweries from different states. So, Burlington Beer Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Burlington in Vermont, and the company was founded back in 2014. But the main man behind the company is John Lenma, who is a local to Burlington, and he'd been a home brewer for a number of years before turning professional in his 20s. So he worked for 6 years at Old Saratoga Brewing in New York State before moving on to Dogfish Head down in Delaware, who are of course really quite well known, and then he also worked his way up to assistant brewmaster at Evolution Brewing in Maryland. But the original brewery, or the original location for Burlington Beer Company, was on Omega Drive in Williston, which is a few miles away from the city. But over the years, they built up the brewery infrastructure, and they also added a tap room and kitchen, and they remained in this location for over 7 years. And by 2018, they were producing 10,000 US barrels of beer per year, which is about 1.6 million litres. So pretty impressive actually. But a little bit later on in 2021, they opened up a new location on Flynn Avenue in the southeast of Burlington City, and this was actually in a building that was built for the Lumiere family to house their North American part of the film business. Lumiere, I think, were one of the the premier photographic film producers. They were based in France somewhere actually, but apparently this area where the brewery is based, or this building, was where some of the first colour pictures in the whole of the US were actually produced. But this site has a 14,000 square foot floor space, and it's allowed them to scale up the brewing quite dramatically, and also to add a wild ale barrel program as well. And it's thought that this site could produce eventually double that of the Williston site. So that would be about 3.2 million litres or something along those lines. But as of March 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 312 different beers according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to increase that number as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Burlington Beer Company for the moment. There wasn't too much information available on these guys, or the founders actually, but he was quite a young guy when he got involved in brewing, so he's been a brewer pretty much all of his career. But yeah, really interesting and well respected brewery from what I've heard, and hopefully we can get up and do a proper beer tour of New England at some point. That's definitely something that I want to do in the next few years, although I got to film quite a lot in Connecticut and other places already. So yeah, like I said earlier, if you want to learn more about this brewery, check out the website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself then. So you can see the can is sweating a wee bit because I've had it out the fridge for like 5-10 minutes just while we got the video and things set up, but I have to say, lovely artwork on this one. There you can see the Burlington Beer Company symbol, which is nice. Plain silver top in the can. Of course, this one is 473 millilitres, 16 fluid ounces if you're going to use the American Freedom unit scale, but that is 1 American pint, basically. But yeah, an 11.5%er this. It's hopped with Idaho 7, Mosaic and Cascade, all of which are American hops, although you do get quite a bit of Cascade produced in New Zealand as well these days, but it tastes a bit different. But yeah, Cascade is the classic American high alpha acid hop, not that high these days, 8% alpha acid. Always find it gives you a lovely kind of figgy quality, but grapefruit and pine resin and stuff like that too. Mosaic 14% alpha acid, lots of juicy kind of tangerine notes, and then Idaho 7 is about 14% alpha acid as well, and in my experience that always gives you some really soft, it gives you quite a bit of juicy mango, but like soft apricot, papaya and some pineapple-y kind of notes. So should be quite an interesting one this. As we said earlier, quadruple dry hopped, quadruple IPA, 11.5% ABV. I would have always considered 12% to be the border for a quadruple IPA, and I think that's the kind of area that most European breweries will go to, but this would be a very strong triple in my opinion. But still, who cares? It's still be a quite interesting beer regardless, and these guys are supposed to be very good at the New England hazies. But yeah, lovely artwork on this one. I'd just let you have a little look at that. It was the dinosaurs that kind of caught my eye. The Primal Carnage incidentally had similar artwork, just purple. This can cost me 98 Hong Kong dollars, which I thought was a very reasonable price considering what kind of beer it is and where exactly it was imported from. So 98 Hong Kong dollars is probably like 11 or 12 American dollars. It's like just shy of £10 sterling, 11 euros, something like that. So yeah, for an imported American beer, I thought that was pretty reasonable, to be honest with you. But let's get it out into the glass then and see what it's going to be like. Primal Destruction. This should be quite interesting. I've been craving like a bigger IPA for a wee while actually. It feels like a good while since I've had like a bigger New England hazy sort of IPA. And these ones are actually quite fresh from what I understand as well. So that's most of the beer out and into the glass. Let me just reposition the can so that my OCD is happy. So yeah, as you can see, this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect from a hazy IPA of any description. So before the head disappears, we've got about 80% or so of the beer in the glass. But you can see this beer's poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream, light fawn coloured head. But it does look very, very nice, this one. in terms of the appearance of this beer, this is definitely one of the more kind of mixed tropical fruit juice type coloured ones that I've come across before. I always like comparing New England hazies to different fruit juices because that's just what the appearance reminds me of. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to IPAs. But probably there's like some caramel or something like that in here that is giving you that kind of deeper colour to it. Not much in the way of visible carbonation. There was when we poured it, but that might have just been down to the cleaning of the glass, if you like. But yeah, in terms of the level of haze in this one, it's actually not the soupiest and gloopiest one that I've come across, but there is a fair level of haze to this one. And so remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that varies from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. So just bear that in mind when it comes to this style. But at that, I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance of the beer. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma then, and I'm very curious about this. I did get a little whiff of it as I opened up the can, but let's just see what we have. Ooh, that smells quite interesting. Now I just want to be absolutely sure. This beer is really quite malty. It does it have a canned on date? Yeah, 14th of October 2023. So yeah, 10/14 23 will be the canned on date with this one. So yeah, this one, at the point of drinking this, it's about 5 months old or something like that, because you can smell a wee bit of the kind of earthiness and things from the hops coming out, and yeah, that means that some of the hopping is kind of dropping off, if you like. So yeah, obviously with an IPA, with New England IPAs, you want to kind of drink them within you want to drink them probably, they need at least 2-3 weeks in the can after their can to sort of mellow out, and then you want to drink them within at least within the first 6 months, but if possible within the first kind of 3 months is when you're going to get the best out of the New England hazies. The West Coast IPAs, I think, can give you a little bit longer than the New Englands. But yeah, anyway, I just got a wee bit of an earthy herbal thing out of the hops of this one as we opened it up. So yeah, it's not in its prime, but we'll take it as it comes anyway. But yeah, aroma-wise, it does actually smell quite nice, this one, and as you might expect from a beer that's 11.5% on the IPA side of the spectrum, it's yeah, it is really nice how that goes together. So yeah, quite a malty leaning, soft, grassy, herbal and juicy fruity New England IPA. I think that's definitely fair to say. So on the let's just break the aroma of this one down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. And as I've said before, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to New England hazy. You've got you have that sort of farmhousey, yeasty type character. You've also got the rye leaning, grainy side of things, and that might be what I'm picking up in this one, because those 2 elements are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs. Some of that can be attributed to the difference in the oats and the wheat, and I did notice that in New England when I was there, that the IPAs produced there using local malt did feel that little bit more grainy, but you've also got the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and the sweeter side of things. These are the 6 elements of flavour you should look for in this beer style. But yeah, let's have a wee look at that aroma a bit more in depth. And I think that is kind of part of what I was getting out of this one, to be honest with you, the more that I smell of it. So yeah, on the malty side of things then, with this beer, you can smell there's a lovely little bit of that kind of fresh brown bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer. There's definitely a little hint of woodiness in there as well. I'm also getting some nice kind of crackery characters coming out of this one, which I also really quite like. Pardon me. Yeah. So yeah, bit of woodiness, bit of crackery character. Definitely getting like a kind of sweeter brown bready note out of this one. And as I've said on the channel many a time, European malts in my experience tend to be a bit sweeter. Tend to be a little bit drier than American malts. The American ones tend to be a little bit sweeter than their European counterparts. So the bready character in this one for me, the brown bread is that little bit sweeter. You do have a little bit of a kind of white bready note in there as well, but yeah, that woody, crackery, grainy sort of thing is lingering in this one for me. You can smell a more dense white bready character and just a little bit of wheaty bitiness. And American wheat, in my experience from being over there just a couple of months ago, I found that American wheat is a lot smoother than European wheat, which has a little bit more of a bite to it. So you can smell that denser and smoother wheaty note coming out of this one, but just with a slight bitiness in the back of the nose. Then you've got some oaty character as well. I mean, the oatiness that comes out of this beer is really very nice. You've got a lovely big kind of creamy character to it. So yeah, lovely big kind of creamy note to it. You've got a little bit of you can smell a bit of dryness out of the oats as well. And as I've said, oatiness is often a good indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older they are. But American oats are a little bit drier, I think, than European oats, less creamy. But yeah, you do get a bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing out of this beer as well, and you would expect that when it's a big 11.5%er. So yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty side of this beer. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about that malty side. But yeah, when you sugar the beer up, you do get more of that earthy, crackery, woody sort of thing, and it's lovely. Yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So remember, with IPAs, there are three kinds of hoppings. Early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil, that's going to give you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil or so, assuming a 90-minute wort boil, that's going to give you a very bright green component, and it's going to contribute mainly to flavour and aroma rather than completely to bitterness. And then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that is all about flavour and aroma, and that's going to translate again to a very bright green component. So yeah, for me, the aroma of this one on the green component is quite it's quite interesting. But remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping mostly. West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they're more bitter and deeper and danker. But yeah, for me, the green component in this one, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character. You know, you've got some really nice kind of floral aromaticity in there as well. It has got a wee touch of spiciness to it also. I think it's that smooth, earthy note, and the kind of floral and grassy notes are quite distinctive. I think that's the Cascade. I wouldn't be surprised if Cascade is being used as an earlier addition hop in this one. But yeah, quite a lot of grassiness in this one. The more I smell of it, the more it leans toward that grassy side of things. But there is a bit of earthy herbal character in there. But of course, the focus of the hoppy side of a beer is always the fruity part of it. So yeah, the fruity side of this one is quite interesting. It's not often, I think, at least in Europe and in other places, that you get Cascade in a New England IPA. It's more of a West Coast hop in my experience. So yeah, interesting point to make about this one. But no doubt in New England itself, there are loads of breweries using Cascade. But yeah, on that fruity side of things, you can definitely smell a little bit of the kind of old school grapefruit, a little bit of that sort of figgy sultana type thing that Cascade also always gives you. And then yeah, you can smell the big tropical notes of the Idaho 7 in this one. Juicy mango for sure, apricot. Don't get the papaya so much, it's mainly a bit of apricot and pineapple, but yeah, a lot of juicy mango. And the mosaic actually, I think, comes out of this one a bit more, but I think you tend to find that if you have a bit more, you know, butterscotchy or brown sugary sweetness coming out of a beer, you are going to get more of the orangey side of the hops. So the mosaic in this one actually shows its head quite nicely. And the Cascade as well. I think the Idaho 7 is probably the most subtle of the three hops in this beer, come to think of it. So yeah, it's quite interesting, this one. It's quite different from the other New England IPAs I've had over the last wee while, actually. And as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. I'm really curious to see what this one is going to be like. It actually says on the can that this one was brewed at the Williston facility. So yeah, they must still be brewing in their original brewery as well, actually. But yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we try this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Primal Destruction, an 11.5% New England Hazy Imperial Quadruple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Burlington Brewing Company in Burlington, Vermont. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. I'm going to say straight away as well, it takes a wee while. You know, I was thinking this beer might be a little bit more grainy and farmhousey and stuff like that, and it does show you a wee bit of that into the aftertaste, but you yeah, it does show you a wee bit more of that into the aftertaste. But as I say, it's quite creamy and quite sweet and things, this one too, which I thought it might be, just going by the appearance. But all in all, another solid beer, which is what I would expect. I heard good things about this brewery and I wanted to try them. But yeah, it certainly hasn't disappointed. So definitely cool to encounter this brewery in Hong Kong, that's for sure. Yeah, let's break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. It's good. As I say, I've been craving like a slightly stronger IPA in recent times, because it does feel like a wee while since I had one. Yeah, so on the hoppy side, on the middle third of your palate, and we always start in the middle third of the palate, you can feel the backbone of the beer is that fresh kind of brown bready wholemeal bread crust. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a wee bit more of a kind of woody sort of thing. So yeah, lovely kind of woody character in there. A little bit of cracker, like above the brown bready bread crust, you've got a wee bit of a Jacob's cream cracker. You've got a wee bit of a kind of woodiness, and you know, those flavours do linger there into the aftertaste, that's for sure. Yeah. The above that kind of bread crusty and crackery character, you do get the brown bready note that comes out of this one. It's quite interesting because it does have a wee bit of that European dryness to it, which is something I actually found was interesting with the New England produced malts. I think the New England produced malts are a little bit drier and a little bit more grainy than the ones you get, which I'm presuming are produced in the Midwest somewhere. Like the American Turos and stuff like that, they're always a little bit kind of sweeter and things. But you know, you have to remember that America's about, I think it's about 3,000 miles wide if I'm not mistaken. So it makes sense that you've got dramatically different soil and stuff on the east side to the west side. So yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, the brown bready character, you've got a layer of brown bread above that kind of crackery note there, and it has this little bit of a kind of grainy character to it. Then above that you get the the kind of white bread, and the further into the flavour of this one you go, you do get a wee bit more kind of lingering sweetness from those bready notes. So that's definitely safe to say. Above the white bread, you can feel the wheaty layer. The wheaty layer in this one is actually very smooth and very dense. As I said earlier, American wheat, I think, is a good bit smoother than European wheat. Then above that, you've got a really nice kind of, yeah, you do have this lovely sort of, I would say, creamy oaty character. The oats are really creamy in this, and this beer does actually feel pretty damn fresh. So I wonder how long, maybe they've held on to this at the brewery a little bit before actually releasing it to be, to be drank, of course. Or, you know, that's it quite often happens that actually that breweries, they'll release the export part of a batch earlier on. So I wonder if that's what's going on here. But yeah, it was October 23 that this thing was canned. But yeah, you've got the wheaty, the more dense, smooth, white bready, wheaty layer there. It gives you a wee bit of bitiness at the back of that middle third of your palate right enough. But then yeah, above that, you get a big, smooth, creamy, oaty character down the middle of the tongue. As you move out toward the edges, it's got a little bit of oaty dryness. But in the dead centre of the palate, you do get that little circle where the kind of Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of flavours come out. And that is the booziness of the beer that's there. So yeah, lovely kind of oily, kind of creamy note, Werther's original note coming out of this one. So yeah, I do really like how that pieces together. As you move further out toward the edge of the palate, you do get a wee touch. There's maybe like a straight up fudge in the dead centre of the palate, and then as you move out from that, Werther's original butter candy, and then as you move to the extremities of that middle third of your palate, there's a little bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. I think at that point though, we've covered everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. So let's go to the back third of the palate then. As I often say, sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, back third of the palate then, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of brown bready character on the base, white bready character further up. Again, a wee bit dry, a wee bit woody and crackery, but the base of that back third of the palate, you've got the same bread crusty notes in there, which feel a little bit drier. Then you've got the crackery notes sitting above that. Then you've got a layer of like kind of wholemeal, brown bready character in there, which feels a little bit lighter, a little bit more airy and also a bit drier. You've got the white bready character that sits above that, which again, lighter, more airy and a little bit drier. And you can feel some of the smooth, wheaty character just creeping up over the top of that. But it does give you a wee bit of bitiness, that's for sure. So yeah, all of these things go together quite nicely on that back third of the palate. Then all the yeasty character from the beer sits above that. So let's look at the yeasty side of things. Yeah, so for me, the yeasty side of the beer, it's actually quite sweet. I mean, in the epicenter of that yeasty part, you've got lovely, big, sweet, dense brown bready notes. As you move further out from that, you've got a wee bit more graininess, a little bit of a sweeter white bread as well, and then just a wee bit of like a crackery bread crust around the edge. And as I say, all of that sits on top of the back third of the palate there. So yeah, above, on the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this one, and the malty and yeasty side of things, is really, really nice. Yeah, I like that about this one. So yeah, the way everything goes together, I think, is quite nice. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things. I am wondering if there's a little bit of cryo hop on the mosaic side of things going on with this, because the green component is very, very smooth in this one, and I don't think in 5 months the hops are going to have dropped that much that it would be so smooth. So I think cryo hops are at play in here. So in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, which will be the mosaic, and to a degree the cascade as well. But as you move further forward, you've got a little bit of herbal character, and as you push further forward along the sides, it just gradually gets a little bit more kind of floral, if you like, and it's got a wee bit of aromaticity, but round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy for sure. So yeah, definitely a little bit lighter and a little bit more grassy. And yeah, the green component, it does get a wee bit more bitter into the aftertaste, but yeah, it's it's not the most bitter of quadruple IPAs, and quite often with these beers, of course, you do want to balance out the booziness and the sweetness a little bit more with that a little touch more IBU, because the standard for a regular New England IPA is about 30 IBU. But let's focus on the front third of the palate then, and the fruity side of things with this beer. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up, brown bread in the base, white bread in the top. Base of that front third of your palate, you've got a really nice kind of like wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. So yeah, wholemeal brown bready bread crust. You get a bit of the brown bread, but you get a bit of the cracker, but you get the sweeter brown bread, the sweeter white bread, and maybe a bit of this kind of smoother side of the oats, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll the way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side of this one is really quite nice actually. And it's kind of what you'd expect if you know these hops. If you go to the back of that front third of your palate, on the fruity side of things, you do get a little tiny touch of grapefruit. You get a wee bit of a kind of like sultana type note to this one as well. And yeah, then you start to get, as you move further forward from that, you start to get more of the kind of big juicy mango which you expect from the Idaho 7. It's quite ripe. As you reach the middle of the front third of your palate, it's like more of a kind of apricot-y, papaya type dryness, maybe a wee bit of juicy pineapple on top. But then yeah, the front half of that front third of your palate is all about the kind of more juicy, oily mosaic. It's the tangerine, it's this kind of oily tangerine-y, zesty orangey type thing. And I do like how that kind of all pieces together. Overall, it's quite a sweet and it's quite a sweet, creamy and juicy fruity New England this. I really like this. So yeah, I'd heard good things about this brewery's beer, and it's kind of proven to have been true. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section of this video. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the mouthfeel then, just to round off the review. So yeah, mouthfeel wise, I'd say that this one is kind of bottom end of full bodied. Carbonation, it's really smooth. It's got a lovely creaminess, lovely kind of oily character to it as well. But yeah, mostly kind of creamy, just a slight oiliness, but that's probably because of the level of booziness you have in this beer. But yeah, it's got quite a wee bit of dryness to it, this one as well, that kind of grainy, crackery sort of thing. IBU wise, I think this one's maybe about 40-ish IBUs. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 30. I don't know if it's anything north of that, to be honest with you. So 30, 40 IBUs with this one. Maltbase, as we said, has a bit of graininess in it, a bit of smoothness, creaminess on top, then a wee bit of the sweetness. It's quite a nice layered malt base, this one, which is what you'd expect from such a heavy New England. And then yeah, green component has a bit of, you know, earthy, herbal dryness into the aftertaste, but a bit of floral, grassy bitterness too. Then you've got a really nice kind of juicy, creamy, sort of fruity note to this one, which I do really enjoy as well. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice, and I think it's definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. I kind of regret that I didn't buy the Primal Carnage as well, to be honest with you, so I might see if they've got any of it left. But yeah, all in all, really nice New England IPA, this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again or try something else from this brewery. I'd be curious to see how similar the flavour profile is, because you quite often tend to find that breweries will do, you know, you'll find trends when it comes to different breweries and such. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Primal Destruction, an 11.5% New England Hazy Imperial Quadruple IPA from Burlington Beer Company in Burlington, Vermont, over in the US. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on the beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from this brewery are as well. Check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Till then, slàinte, skål, and cheers.